meeting to order of the August 13th MPO board meeting. And the first item on the agenda will be to call the roll so everybody can personally identify who is here. Mayor Rosworski, myself, I'm here. Mayor Dennis.
I'm here.
Commissioner Brown. Oh, I guess maybe it's going to be Commissioner Murtaugh today.
I'm here. I'm representing Tracy.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Jackson Bogan.
I'm here.
Peter Under.
Here.
Cindy Murray.
Here.
Mike Gibson.
Here.
Shane Spears.
Present.
Okay. And Mr. Campbell and Underwood are not with us today. Is that correct?
You're muted, Sally.
Sorry about that. Yes, we did not hear from Councilman Campbell, so we suspect he will not join us, nor did we hear from Kevin Underwood. So we expect the same non-presence.
All right, thank you very much. The first item on the agenda is the minutes from the July 9th, 2020 meeting. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Mike Gibson makes the motion.
John Dennis seconds.
Thank you, John. Motion and a second. Is there any further questions or discussion? All right, hearing none, I'll call a roll call vote on the approval of the minutes. Mayor Dennis.
Aye.
Commissioner Murtaugh.
Approved.
Jackson Bogan.
Approved.
Peter Bunder.
Aye.
Cindy Murray.
Aye.
Mike Gibson.
Aye.
Shane Spears.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. The item on the agenda is Resolution T 2020-06, a resolution to amend the FY 2020-2024 Transportation Improvement Program. We've got some new projects on there. So who'll be handling that?
That'll be Doug.
Okay, Doug, you're up.
You're muted, Doug. There you
How's
go.
that?
That's better.
Well, good afternoon. We have a request by the Indiana Department of Transportation to program 2 new projects in the TIP. These are pretty interesting projects, ones that I've never seen before. The first project is an overhead sign structure inspection project. Well, that's a mouthful. NDOT has surprisingly approximately 3,700 structures throughout the state. And like any other structures, they need to be inventoried or inspected every so often. This project actually started in fiscal year 2016, and in fiscal 2021, which we are in now, they are looking to use both state and federal funds to inspect those structures on non-interstate routes. The specific details of the cost actually is in the table. The second project is a high mast lighting tower inspection project, another tongue twister. And these you mainly see at the interstate interchanges, the high towers, if I am correct. This year they are looking at inspecting the towers at 4 districts. Last year they inspected the towers in the Greenfield and LaPorte districts. And the specific information, again, is found in the table in the staff report. This request was presented to the Technical Transportation Committee last month, and they recommended approval, and we are asking for your approval. Are there any questions?
All right, thank you, Doug. If there are no further questions, I'll conduct a roll call vote on this resolution. Mayor Dennis.
Aye.
Commissioner Murtaugh.
Approved.
Jackson Bogan.
Approved.
Peter Bunder.
Aye.
Cindy Murray.
Aye.
Mike Gibson. Mike, did you approve that? I didn't hear.
Aye.
Thank you. Shane Spears.
Aye.
The motion is approved. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the APC progress report. And we have several items under the MPO update.
Aren't you first, Doug?
The city bus safety plan, be Marty.
Yeah, I'm sorry, on my agenda, I don't have who's going to be speaking. So whoever's going to be speaking about the city bus safety plan, you're up.
Okay, that'll be me, Mayor.
Okay.
Several years ago, the FTA initiated a rule to formalize our safety procedures and how we conduct our safety programs. What you see in front of you is the formalized plan. Doesn't mean that we haven't been doing this for years, but it just puts in writing who's responsible for what actions, when these plans were updated. It set some goals. I didn't just pull the numbers out of the air like I usually do. These were taken from National Transit Data base that all transit systems report to. So we've established some goals. It just more or less formalizes what we have been doing for many years, establishes who's responsible for these roles. The other thing I'd like to mention is, along with the safety plan, on 11 different vehicles, we have just installed the collision avoidance system that you guys approved probably a year and a half ago. You're wondering, why did it take so long? The short story is, we went out to bid. The company presented their bid and said the cameras had difficulty picking up objects and people in no or low light situations. And I said, well, that's no good. Half the year, we run in low light quite a bit of the day. So after they improved their camera system, we went out to for proposals again, and they rectified that problem with the cameras. And one of the great things about the camera system, it records through GIS the events. So if we have a close call at one particular intersection, let's just say Northwestern and State or someplace like that, we'll have a lot of markers that show that that's a problematic intersection. And we can work with the city engineer, police department, or in some cases, it could be a state road, that we could say, what do we need to do to make this certain intersection safer? We also know, we get daily reports, who is exceeding the speed limit by more than 10 miles an hour. You know, if it's everybody doing it, then maybe there's a problem with the route. Maybe we look at redesigning the route so that the drivers don't have to drive pedal to the metal to make the schedule. So we want to use this new system, or we're trying it out on 11 vehicles to make it sure it works before we equip every single bus in the fleet, because it is quite expensive to do so. But I think the data that we get back and the information will be a tremendous help. We have recently hired, and she'll start work on the 24th, a new transit analyst will help analyze the data. I'm going to recommend to our board of directors in our fiscal year 21 budget that we create a position for HR and safety director to oversee a lot of these procedures that we have outlined in the plan itself. So that's a quick snapshot. The MPO policy board doesn't have to vote on this. The regulations say I must present it to you for comment.
All right, well, thank you. That looks very, very thorough and certainly well thought through. Congratulations to you and your board. Does anybody on this board have a question for Marty? Okay, thank you. Next is the thoroughfare plan update. Whoever is speaking to that.
Yeah, that's me. So I have a few PowerPoint slides that I have included in our packet, but I'm going to go ahead and run through those just to kind of give you a brief look at where we're at and kind of what we're doing with this plan. I'm going to try to go through this fairly quickly, and then I'll ask for questions at the end. So currently in our thoroughfare plan, we basically have two considerations. We're looking at is something in what we would consider an urban area or a rural area, and then based on that, what street design is appropriate. And the other thing that the current plan does is it fits elements into the right-of-way. So for different types of streets, there's a predefined right-of-way, and then we kind of try to see, okay, how can we fit in what we need to that predefined area? For our updated plans, we think we have a better way to approach some of these things. So this takes us from two considerations up to three. So the first thing we're looking at is what we call development intensity. Second is land use, and the third is street design. So I do have some more information about these on my next couple slides, but the main takeaway for now is that we're going from 2 to 3. So development intensity, what we're really asking is how much has been built on the land. So is the land in kind of a natural state? Is it farmland, or is it something, you know, in a kind of a more downtown area or somewhere in between? So we've broken it up into 4 categories, which you can see here: urban, downtown, urban, a special category for the towns. So that is not only Dayton, Battleground, Clarks Hill, but also some of the smaller towns in the county that have recently gotten sewer. So Romney, with their sewer district, and then the one up in the northeast as well. And then finally, a rural district for something that is not in any of the other 3 categories. So land use, we're kind of asking, how do people spend time in this place? So again, 4 categories, that seems to be our magic number, I guess. So we've combined commercial and industrial into one category because from a traffic and road design standpoint, those have somewhat similar needs, similar enough that we can group them together. We also have a mixed use category that is especially applicable in our downtown areas with some of our new high-rise development, particularly is where you'll see that kind of thing. So residential, that's something where it's primarily residential, and then of course rural again. So for street design, what we're asking is, you know, how many different types of users are there? How many vehicles are there versus bicycles, pedestrians, and what about transit users? All of these are very important users of the system, and we need to make sure we accommodate for all of them. And additionally, we have several different classifications of roads that you can see here. I've got a list of them. So the arterials at the top, those tend to be larger roads that carry more traffic, and then all the way down to the bottom, the local roads, those carry minimal traffic but provide access to usually homes and residences. So the classification of existing roads, we're still in the process of reviewing this. There will be some maps that I'll show you later in the presentation, but this is kind of where we're at right now. So then arterials, like I mentioned before, those tend to be longer roads. They have higher volumes. They move a lot of traffic. And then collectors are a category I didn't mention on the last slide. Those are usually shorter roads, and they often will connect to other classified roads. So a collector could connect an arterial to an arterial. It might connect an arterial to another collector, which connects it to something else. So those types of things are what we're looking at with that. Okay, so then for each classification of those several categories, you have several different types of design standards that you see here. These are not even all of them. It was a little bit too challenging to fit them all on one slide. So I tried to hit some of the highlights with this. In particular, some that I want to call attention to are the bike lane width, trails, sidewalks. So those we think are very important, and those are some things that are really changing and improving in this plan as compared to the previous one. So right-of-way width in this plan is determined by what elements need to go into the right-of-way. So before, with our previous plan, I said we had a defined right-of-way width, and we tried to kind of fit in the elements into that. We think that's kind of backwards. So now what we're trying to do is give more flexibility with design and decide, what do we really need? And then that kind of dictates how wide the right-of-way will be. Okay, so I have an example for this. So this is what you would see in one of the design tables in the plan. There are 11 of these, and I'm going to kind of go through real quick how you would use this and what you would see in terms of output. So for my example, we have 20 North 3rd Street, building that some of us are pretty familiar with. And so if we were to go through the first part of that plan, that would put this in the urban downtown development intensity. It would put us in the mixed use land use category. And 3rd and Columbia Street, which would be the two that we would be considering, are both one-way pair primary arterials. We do need to look at both of them for this particular example. There may be an example where redevelopment occurs where you would only need to look at one street. Obviously, it depends on where that occurs, but for this example, we got to look at both. So if you see at the top there, what I have highlighted in the red box, urban downtown mixed use, those are the first two slides I went through. And then that takes us to the row that says the one-way pair primary arterial. So that would require these particular design standards. And you may notice that in some of these different columns, there are some things that are not numbers. So there are some things that say design, varies, not applicable. So there are a lot of footnotes in this plan that explain what those mean. That gets kind of technical, so I didn't think it was appropriate for this committee, but we have been reviewing this with the local government engineers. So I just want everyone to know that, it has been reviewed by them and they have given their blessing to it as of this point. So as the example of using this plan, again, we would need to meet the design standards for both Columbia Street and 3rd Street. And one thing that I wanted to note as kind of a final thing is that for some projects, exceptions may be desired, or they may make more sense given, how land has developed. So what we're kind of trying to do with this plan is to give the local government engineers a lot of design input. So that's why the note that I have here says that exceptions from the design standards are often going to be at the discretion of the local government engineer. We have discussed how an appeal process can take place for developers. We have not finalized that part of it yet, but that's kind of where we're at with this. So kind of in closing, what I really want to get from this committee is kind of just your thoughts on this. And I know it's hard to give thoughts based on a specific, like just this presentation I've given you without having seen the plan. So I am willing to send you guys, a draft of this if you'd like to review it. Or we can have a meeting, we can set up something virtually where I can talk you through what we're trying to do. But one thing that we think is really important is to have unity in this plan and to make sure that everyone's on board, that it's not just something that APC thinks is good, but that it's something that APC thinks is good, that local government engineers think is good, and that you guys on this committee think is good, and that the development community thinks is good, and that our citizens think is good. So with that, if you guys have any questions, I will entertain them at this time.
Yeah, Tim, John Dennis here. Are the city engineers, county engineers going to get a copy of this? My sound is horrible.
Yes. Yeah, we've already gone through some of it with them, but before we put a final plan for approval, they will all get a copy of the draft, yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
When we finish this current draft phase, then we'll start taking this out to the development community. I sort of expect there may be some pushback because their surveyors will have to take a look at what roads are appropriate in the development before they know what kind of right-of-way they're going to have to plat, which will take consultation with our office and with city and county engineers. There are some things that the engineers get to make decisions on, but most of those we have sort of outside parameters within which they can make some specific decisions depending on the particular road in the development. So we're hoping that the local government engineers will participate with us as we go to the development community so that the developers understand that we're all in agreement. One of the big issues has been in the subdivision ordinance, which in part mirrors the thoroughfare plan. You all have done a fantastic job at developing trail plans, bike ped plans, and yet when we get to a development area, we have no way to require a developer to continue that trail plan or trail through their development as you have planned that it should. So this is one of the ways that we can continue implementing those plans without the burden being entirely on local government. So we think that the development community should be sharing in that cost because they are ultimately getting a more desirable community.
Okay, anybody, from my standpoint, just as from the city, if Jeremy has looked at this and given his preliminary blessing to keep moving forward, I'm comfortable. This is something we are interested in, and we are very interested in getting those standards lined up, like you said, with the trails and linkages to the parks and the bike. And we've all done huge bike ped plans trying to tie all these things together. So in my mind, this is the next step. As you said, we still need to vet it with groups and have that discussion and allow for input, but this certainly seems to me to be a good step in the right direction. Sally, do we need to do something else as a group here for you?
Not at this point. Just encourage your engineers to participate with us when we go to the development community. We'll let them know when we set up those meetings.
Okay, nope, that'll be fine.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else from the board have a question for Tim over this thoroughfare plan update that they'd like answered? Okay, thank you, Tim. Looks good. Next is coordinated human services plan update.
That'll be Doug.
Okay, Doug, you're up.
Again, good afternoon. This is an interesting project that we started on late last year. The Coordinated Human Services Transit Plan looks at transportation issues for three different types or three groups of persons. They being those who have low income, those who are elderly, and those who are disabled. It is a federal requirement, and this process that we're going through now is actually our second update to the plan that we did years ago. The steps that we have already taken in developing this plan, of course, first we put all of the demographic data together, and that is actually available on our website. Earlier this year, we sent out our first notice letting all of our stakeholders know that we are in the process of doing this, and then asked if they would review a list of transportation providers that we had put together. We had or did receive several comments and added those providers to the list. And of course, with the virus and shutdown, that was put off for a short time. When we did come back, we started the process back up, and the early part of July, we sent out our second round of letters, and those specifically went to the transportation stakeholders. We did send them a link to a PDF survey, which had 16 questions and basically asked the services that they provide and give us some information. The date that we asked those be sent back was at the end of July, and unfortunately, we only received a small number returned. Last week, I did contact all of the agencies, and we did receive more. We're now up to 38%. So next week I will be reaching out again and asking if they can fill them out. The next step after that is then looking at the issues, gaps, challenges, barriers that these three groups face. In the past, we have done that through a meeting, and with the interesting times that we're going through right now, we're going to try, at least at first, by sending out another PDF fillable where they can actually write it in and then send it back to us. And then after that, we'll see what happens. So hopefully, maybe at the end of this year, we'll be able to start actually working on the report and then have it done either later this year or early next year. Questions?
Well, thank you. Thank you for your perseverance. Seems it's a little tough getting responses back, but for your perseverance on continuing to do that to make sure we have adequate information and input to make good decisions from. Anybody else?
I'll just add a quick comment.
Yes.
What we're trying to do with this plan is find out what services are available in the community to these three groups, find out what their needs are, then where are the gaps between their needs and what services are provided, and then jointly, just a second, can you turn down?
Sorry.
And then jointly figure out if we can develop solutions to filling those gaps. So that's in a nutshell the purpose of this plan.
Very good. Very admirable. Thank you. All right. Next is the annual listing of projects update. Who will be handling that?
That will be me as well. Projects. This project is one that we have been doing since fiscal year 2006, surprisingly. And it is a requirement specifically actually spelled out in the FAST Act. And what it is that we are looking back the past fiscal year to see where our federal funds have been used or obligated. We have actually taken this report and done a lot more extensive research and added a lot more information. We do add projects by the cities, county, that are just funded with local funds only. So it's an extensive and very large document that lists road projects, transit projects, bicycle projects, pedestrian projects, and we also include projects, of course, by the Indiana Department of Transportation. We have, of course, the information about the projects. We have that in a master table, and then we also have it in individual project sheets so you can get specific details about the project, and also with aerial photos and then pictures so you can get an idea of where the project is and what the land use around it looks like. The project also includes a completion summary that we're the only one or MPO in the state that does include this. And I look back to see the project before and after picture, and then kind of gives you an idea when project started and when it actually ended. The project or this document, actually the draft has been completed and is going through the review process at this time. There is a deadline in terms which we need to get it finished and completed and actually up on our website, and that is September 30th. Hopefully we'll have that up and done in 2 or 3 weeks. Questions?
Anybody have any questions for Doug? All right. Well, thank you. We know that's a lot of work, but you guys do a great job with that document. So thank you for all your efforts on that. The next item on the agenda is the traffic count program update.
Okay, that's me. So this year, this year and next year, we plan to do traffic counts differently than usual. We are working on making a vehicle miles traveled model. And so that means that we need to take counts in different locations to where we usually do, since we have usually a 3-year cycle of where we take those location counts. This time we're focusing mostly on intersections along arterials and other high functional class roads. And unfortunately, things have been a little bit different this year with the virus. So the counts that we've taken thus far may not reflect historical trends. Ordinarily, to correct for season and other variations, we apply an adjustment factor that NDOT provides, but this year, NDOT has not provided any COVID adjustment factor, so we cannot adjust our counts for that adjustment to traffic. However, we have moved around the times we've taken the counts to try and avoid the worst brunt of COVID. So Lafayette, I think now has completed all their counts, and West Lafayette should be finishing those up here too. So we tried to aim for what we thought was the least impacted time of year based on what we knew at the time. I think that's it for Tippecanoe County on traffic counts.
County also does counts for us.
Yes, the county, of course, also does those.
Well, Sally, I, for whoever, I guess if you have just a quick question, I don't need a lengthy thing, but since we know with COVID and everything, and I don't see how the state could really even give an adjustment. I mean, who knows exactly what are we even going to do with these traffic counts? I mean, we're going to be careful about making decisions off of them, right?
Certainly. We can compare these counts to historic data that we already have to at least get a sense of how it's changed, based on historic trends. Not all of the counts are in locations where we've never taken a count before. A lot of them we have taken counts, if not within the past 3 years, then within the past 10 years or so at least. So we could, run some statistics and figure out generally what has changed as a result of COVID. But that's, I think, about the best we can do at this time.
I would
If
agree.
nothing else, at least this gives us info on what this event has done to our traffic for the times that we counted. So we do get that info from it in case something happens again that's similar.
All right. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. Any other questions? All right. The next item on the agenda is the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan Goals Survey.
Okay, so this is me. So this is something that we've launched as part of our long-range planning efforts that we do every 5 years. And so what you're looking at right now on the screen is an example, is a part of the survey that we distributed throughout members of the community using various methods, mostly social media sites, as well as reaching out to some local organizations for distribution, their newsletters. And I know it also went up on our website and on the city's website and so on. So we have several different goals, and kind of the format here is it has a question. So in this example, you can see how important is enhancing transportation options and accessibility for all. And then it gives a little description of what that means, so everyone can get everywhere that they need to, regardless of any mobility challenges they may have. It includes a picture. So for this one, we have this woman in the wheelchair utilizing the curb ramp. And then a person who is taking the survey would rank how important this goal is. So it can be anywhere from very important to not important. And then that's kind of the general format for all of these questions. We have several other potential goals. There are 9 of them that I'm kind of scrolling through right now fairly quickly. So we have received a very, very good response rate on this. We have gotten over 550 total responses between the English version that you see here, and then we also had this translated into Spanish. So between those two, we have over 550 responses. And at the bottom, we had a space for people to give some comments about other goals, and we received over 150 different, more so comments, I would say, than goals per se directly. But so we've gotten very, very good participation on this. I've started work on analyzing some of the results and comparing some of the responses that we've gotten. And our intention is that this will be the kind of the first part of the public participation and outreach for this plan. The next step is to kind of drill down a little deeper into some specific goals for each of these different types of potential overarching objectives. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We're very pleased with what we've seen so far, and we're going to incorporate this into our plan, as well as try to get some more feedback. And we'd like to thank anyone who's watching this who has taken the survey, as well as to let you know that we'll be sharing results on the same platforms that we posted the initial survey on, as well as we will be following up with some more solicitations for input from the public. Are there any questions about this?
Just one quick comment. In addition to Facebook and some of the more traditional social media outlets that we have access to, we did use Nextdoor, which seems to have been wildly successful as a place to get responses. Tim can correct me if I have this out of whack, but it seems to me that the answer was that we had over 100 responses in the first 3 hours that it was up on Nextdoor, which is mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's a little hard to tell exactly where we were getting eyes from because we did post it on all the different outlets at the same time. But what we did see within those first few hours was that there were a lot of comments on Nextdoor regarding the survey. So that's one of the reasons that leads us to believe that a lot of the people that got to taking the survey, at least initially, were getting there through Nextdoor.
All right, great. Thank you, Tim. Well done. Anybody else have any questions for Tim? All right, Doug, are you going to handle the 18-month letting list?
Yes, I am. Be more than glad to. For the 18-month letting list, once again, a 2-page report. As you can see from both pages, there are a lot of projects, especially NDOT projects, that we will be seeing over the next 18 months. The first major group of projects related to the Hoosier Heartland, all on course of State Road 25, and they are targeted for an October 7th letting. And they are all related to putting a thin deck overlay on all of the bridges. And you can see on the location that there are sprinkled throughout the corridor. The following month, in November, we have a dozen projects that will be let. I hope they are let, with most of them being on I-65. There is one on State Road 25, and that is replace the superstructure of the Big Shawnee Creek, which is just south of State Road 28. The following month in December, we have 7 projects on the list, and they are on various state roads. And then following that, we have some in January, February, March, and then a couple further on. I'd like to point out that projects 28, 29, and 30 are all 3 local projects. We're using our federal funds, so with everything going good and we keep our fingers crossed, we should have all of our federal funds obligated by the end of January, so we won't have to go through and move money around. On the bottom, we did have some changes on projects 42 and 43. Sagamore Parkway Trail, that moved from a March letting to a November letting. And then on I-65, the project moved from a July to a December letting. Any questions?
No. All right. Any questions? I was kind of skimming there a little bit more in depth myself real quick, but no, that looks good. Any other questions for Doug on the 18-month letting list, or Shane, if you'd like to make any comments on that? Certainly don't have to, but if there's something you'd like to say, please feel free to let us know.
Yeah, just briefly, not so much on that, but just for you, Mayor, and those of you that were involved and or affected when we had I-65 closed there a couple weekends ago. Just appreciate everybody's patience and the cooperation and teamwork. It worked out really well. So just wanted to say thank you to everybody.
Great. Well, thank you. All right. That brings us to other business. Is there any other business to come before the board?
Mr.
I
Mayor,
don't have any, Mayor.
this is Marty. I'd just like to let everybody know that earlier this week on Tuesday, the FTA released their results of the bus and bus facility grants program. And we were awarded $1.2 million for the expansion of our CNG station, adding a
Great.
dispenser, compressor, and some shelter for our employees. And I want to thank everybody who wrote letters on our behalf, who probably would not have gotten this without your support. So I greatly appreciate the continued support from everybody on the board and policy board and our board as well. So I just want to let you know that happened. And the second thing is we've been trying to hire a transit analyst since March, and I finally hired one who started the 24th of this month, and we will get going on the shelter project. You guys gave us some money 2 years in a row. And we've done, Doug has done the environmental on several of the locations that we've identified. I think it's a dozen. I can't remember the exact number. And so we can apply for the money and we can get going. So hopefully sometime either late fall or early spring, you'll start seeing more shelters popping up.
Well, that's great news on both fronts. Congratulations on the grant. That's certainly good for you and the entire community, and we appreciate that. And I know I can speak for John also. We're looking forward to more bus shelters out there. So that's we're glad to hear that is continuing to move along. All right. Anything else under other business? Okay, at this time, we'll ask for citizen comment, and I will give Sally so much time to check to see if anything has been emailed or sent in to us that needs to be read into the record.
China's been monitoring that, and we have not had anything come in during the entire meeting.
Okay. All right, thank you. With that, I would entertain a motion and a second for adjournment, and then we'll conduct a roll call vote.
Move to adjourn.
Second, Mike Gibson.
Thank you, Mayor and Mike. I'll now conduct a roll call vote for adjournment. Mayor Dennis.
Aye.
Commissioner Murtaugh.
Aye.
Jackson Bogan.
Aye.
Peter Bunder.
Aye.
Cindy Murray.
Aye.
Mike Gibson.
Aye.
Shane Spears.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. We're adjourned. Have a great day.
Hey, guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you.